We won the Sheffield Shield in '95, and same year there was an AFL team that won the flag, and this is where I have to do a little bit of checking around the room. There are a couple of Southerners here who may very well know AFL 100% better than I do, which is probably not a lot, but still better than I do. So, who won the flag in '95? Oh, geez, right, I could be in trouble here.
Got 42 touches and got Northwich
Oh.
He should have got Northwich
Oh, geez, righto, look out, look out. You are a Carlton supporter? All right. No, I wasn't going to go easy. I was asking you to go easy on me because there's a bit of a story out of that. And the more that people know about AFL and Carlton, I get a little bit hesitant because I'm not sure whether my story is right or not, you know. So anyway, if you do, it'd be good to confirm or otherwise. So obviously David Parkin was the coach, and I hadn't met him, and then I wanted to meet him after that because he wrote an article, and this is where I do stand to be corrected if there are people that have far better knowledge than me or recall. But two things that I do think I remember of his article from winning that flag was he talked about the team or the club being on the northbound locomotive. So, in other words, northbound locomotive was another word for the culture of the team, the club, sponsors, everybody that year. That they just believed that they were unstoppable. That's what it was. You know, jump on the train. It's all headed towards winning the premiership, and that's what happened. But the other thing that really began to interest me, because in '94 here in Queensland, and as I mentioned before, part of my philosophy is about trying to have this competitive advantage, doing some things that other people hadn't done before, is that was the first time that computers were introduced into cricket. We started that up here in Queensland. And it was around trying to capture data, capture vision, better than just having all the knowledge, experience, intuition of all your players and other people in the room, which is fantastic, and you need to keep harnessing that. But I wanted to make it more precise. I wanted more detail, and the only way we could do that is to try to capture it, and that's where computers started for cricket and certainly other sports. David Parkin said that while he measured traditional results, you got all your numbers, and again, if we went to the AFL people, what are your traditional numbers in AFL that you record how well a game's going? You already mentioned 42 or 44 goals, possessions, hard ball gets, whatever that is, you know, so they're all the pretty important numbers that you can judge individuals or a team by and match and look at those trends over the season. But he said we then recorded sacrificial acts, and the sacrificial acts were plays away from the ball. So they looked at players that were doing things that weren't recorded in those traditional numbers, but were offering the other players the chance to get those numbers. Does that make sense? So they were, in a sense, sacrificing their number so that another member of the team could get that number, but ultimately the team would benefit. Okay? So, and this is where somebody might correct me, but I'm pretty sure he said that so long as they committed 64 sacrificial acts in a game, they never lost a game. Right? So, put that up there, and I think it's a really important concept to have in your own mind when you look at your own philosophy and your sacrificial players, and we will come to that as we go through this presentation. But just to bear that one in mind, and that's a bit of an explanation of what it is and why it's there. In 2005, we lost the Ashes. So again, I always do like to check in the room how many Englishmen are in the room, and if they are they going to admit it?
One South African. No?
Well, one South African, that's okay. So this was the Palmer's moment of glory down here, 2005, they beat us in the Ashes. So in Australian sport, you would have noticed that a lot of people can get away with a lot of things, albeit that's getting a little bit harder these days, particularly if you want to express your religious freedoms. But in Australian sport, there's one thing that is absolutely sacrosanct, You can never lose to the Poms, right? No matter what you do or what you don't do, you can't lose to the Poms. So that's what we did in 2005, lost that Ashes series. So coming back, it was get rid of the coach, change the captain, do a few other things, you know. So at that point in time, I then, as coach, albeit that we again I'd been there about 6 years and we'd pretty well won most things, been very, very successful. But losing the Poms meant forget all that. That's all we think about, all we want to look at. So I had to go to the board and justify my position as coach. Now, I'm not saying that you're in the same position, that, you know, the figures aren't great, so they grab the CFO and hold him up in front of, he or she, hold him up in front of the board and say, right, you know, turn those figures around, otherwise you're out. But nonetheless, the point was here that I had to work out whether I was still the right person. And the only way that you can do that is to go back into your base camp, go back into your philosophy and values and so on, and work out whether or not you'd actually been delivering on that. Had you been living it? And so 3 questions for me. One was, could I still make a difference? Could I still make a real difference? So again, you remember that my philosophy was around changing the game. So if I was going to stay with the team, if I was going to be given the opportunity to stay with the team, could I still make a difference? Did I believe I could? And not just, you know, little bits here and there, but still could I move us towards changing the game? So that was the first question. Second question was, did I still have the desire, the energy, you know? So you might have really good ideas and ways and means of changing the game, but you don't want to prosecute it anymore. You've just had enough. You know, you've had enough of bashing your head against a whole range of things, or just the demands of the job. So that was the second question. Did I still want to, you know, travel away, whatever it was, 250 nights a year, be away from home and family? Do I still want to deal with, as I said before, 35-year-old children at different stages? Do you want to continually be training, preparing, facing the media, the highs and the lows of winning and losing at international competition? So, second question, did I still have the motivation to do that? Third question was, did I still have the respect of the senior players in the team? All right, the senior people in the team. So if I had answered no to one of those, I'm not sure that I would have fronted the board. Or if I did front the board, I don't think I could have convinced them what it is that we're going to do to turn things around. So this is what was then presented to the board, that if you give me the next 20 months, this is what's going to happen. Firstly, our Everest, so going back to that notion of Everest, our Everest is this big 3. So those 3 stars there had never occurred in Australian cricket history before, or at least winning them. So we hadn't won a ICC trophy. Then the Poms were coming back out to Australia, so here was an opportunity to regain the Ashes. And then the treble was to head off to the West Indies and win a 3rd World Cup in a row. So that was kind of the Everest. And the overarching strategy to get there was that we were going to be the best skilled team the world had ever seen. Right? That was the overarching strategy. Obviously a range of other things underneath that, because that leads then to, well, if that's what we're going to be and kind of this is where we are now, well, what do we have to do in terms of our skill sets, technical skill sets, our physical side, our mental game, our tactical game, using data and vision and everything else? How are all those things looking? So we needed to up the ante with all those things. We looked at our training schedules, we looked at our dress and our code, and we looked at different equipment that we might use to enhance our chances of being that in that time frame. And so that again is what I was presenting to the board to say that yes, I think I'm still the right person to do the job. So from your points of view, again, all I'm saying is that it's a tough part, or it's a tough time in your industry. This was a tough time in our sort of period of cricket. But what is it that I can do if I still believe I'm the right person in the role that you're in? You know, and you're the only person who can answer that question, you know? And so therefore, what can I do and how can I influence and how can I help direct the future of your business or where we're going? Then part of that is around measurement, obviously, and are we on track? You know, there's again, not sure whether it's totally fact or mythical, but the first man on the moon. Who was that? Neil Armstrong. What year? 69. Anybody remember the date? Depends whether you're Northern Hemisphere or Southern Hemisphere. 20 or 21. Yep, there you go. So, really good. And flying, what was he flying? What were they in? What was the name of the craft? Apollo 11. Beautiful. So, off they go, right? And we know they got there. Some theories suggest not, but anyway, we're assuming they got there and then they got back. So on the way from blast off at Cape Canaveral to the moon, 100% of that journey, right? So how much or what percentage of that time was the spacecraft on track to hit the moon? Come on, your numbers, guys, ladies.
Hopefully the whole first part, 50%.
All right, 50%, there you go. Some people say it's 100% because they hit the moon. 50, any other takers on 50? Going once, twice, 3 times. Well, the theory goes it was 3% of the time. 3% of the time. And that's because, yeah, they're just constantly tracking, and for a short period of time, you know, they're on track, but then they quickly are off track. But they're constantly just, you know, zigzagging the way. So, why am I telling that story? For no reason at all. It just seems like a good story. Not really, but it is about measurement. You know, so if you want to see your business up here and you're here, we've got to know that we're going in the right direction. And so that's all your results and your trends and so on. But what we were trying to do again with the Australian cricket team was to look at that with more lead sort of data if we could. Now this is probably still a bit lag data, but we're trying to be a little bit more predictive about our progress. And so just to give you some explanation, again, you don't have to understand cricket really to get the principles behind here, but within your business, so that top left-hand box there as you look at the screen where it says ODI, so that's one day cricket, our game plan was 3 Ps, and they're the 3 Ps, this notion of patience, partnership, pressure. So this is an acronym. 3 Ps is what we were going to play with. So as I say, you might have some of those in your business. And then of course you have all the various departments within your business again. So within our little organisation, there's the batting department, the bowling department, the fielding department. And the phases in those days were the first 15 overs and the last 10 overs, which was happy hour, so there's 25, and then 25 in the middle. So 3 phases. So again for you, you'll have quarters, or you might want to go, you know, whatever, monthly reports, etc. So various times. So if we then took batting and patience, well, what would that actually mean? How could we track that? You know, rather than just people saying, yeah, well, I was pretty patient today out there, or a coach saying you're pretty impatient out there today. We really wanted to actually have some sort of number that would tell us, or give us some indication that was occurring. And so what we all basically agreed that around a whole range of different options, that balls per wicket. So therefore that meant that if a batsman was able to stay at the wicket longer before they lost their wicket, more balls, therefore they were exhibiting more patience. Okay, so that was kind of the concept. But they don't stand in isolation, obviously, because we needed to see that in our top 4 partnerships. And then of course the pressure was about, well, you can stay at the wicket, but if you're not scoring any runs, you're not much use to us anyway. So over here, this was suggesting now that rather than if you take a 6-ball over and somebody scores a 4 in that 6-ball over, so that's 4 runs in 6 balls, so in traditional numbers, that's a 67% strike rate, okay? Whether you like cricket or not, you're all there. So 67% strike rate. If you score 4 singles in 6 balls, it's still a 67% strike rate. So we chose, and I believed we were exerting more pressure if we were scoring 4 singles, because we're in control of the over more times than the opposition were. And so therefore it gave us more opportunity to exert that pressure on the opposition team. So that's kind of how we were trying to begin to track our individual and our collective performance through our one-day team, so that it was taking us in that direction about, hopefully if we're skilling ourselves better, then we would see some evidence of that. And lastly, if I look back at the way that I was then trying to deliver on that vision, 3 Everests, the big 3, our Everest, and trying to get this strategy in place, then not necessarily in that order, but they were the things that were pretty important to me to try to ensure that I got things happening. So first is those coaching principles. That's you, your philosophy. Am I living that? Am I doing that? Am I reflecting on that? And if I'm not, what do I do about that? Second is, the job. So you've all got your job descriptions. I found mine was always sort of changing. And I think it's really important that, whoever you're reporting to, whether it's the CEO or possibly board or somebody else, being very clear on what your job is, what you're being assessed on, and what sometimes you'd like to be assessed on, because that's where you can make some impact on the business. So being clear on that all the time. Then again, understanding in your business, who are those key influences that are going to help me? Who are the people that understand what I'm talking about? Where are they? And how do I keep them informed so that they can continue to influence and talk to other people in the business? So, for example, in cricket, my key influences tended to be my assistant coaches or physios or trainers. And the reason why they were my best influences were that they spent so much time with the players. And they spent time with the players where the player was enjoying their company, meaning that the assistant coach was technically trying to help them. So anything technical was a really good conversation, and it was only about trying to benefit them being a better player on the field. The physio was trying to look after any sort of injuries, again niggles, that would prevent them from playing. And they always loved a great massage as well. So spending a lot of time on the physio bench, there were a lot of conversations that go on there, and certainly not just about cricket, but about a range of things. And then the trainer, someone like the trainer, is again just making the guys look pretty by building their muscles up and making them look strong and being strong. So really important people, because you know that they're talking with the players and they need to be in tune with you. So key influences. Remember I talked there about before, part of my philosophy again was about the whole person. So as much as you can, and it's a prerogative of the people that are reporting to you or that you're trying to influence, as much as they want to let you into their lives, that's as far as you can go, but you're really just trying to know as much as you can about them. That's time. So I mentioned this technology company. That's one of the issues that they've got, is that because the leaders in the business are caught up in the weeds, they're not actually investing the time back in their people. A lot of time, they're not spending time trying to understand where they're at. They're not hearing them. They just haven't got the time. So very important to try to, again, keep making yourself redundant from the weeds, but being strategic, and then you can spend more time with people. We need to also be in tune, obviously, with the working person. That's very important, because you're spending a lot of time with them in a working relationship. So are they delivering on their job? Do they understand their job? Do they understand their expectations and so on? You're an agent of change. Anybody in a leadership role, to me, is an agent of change. Or you should be. You should see yourself in that way, shape or form. And that agent of change may simply be about questioning the way things are being done. Being a bit provocative. You've got lots of numbers in front of you. How do we present those numbers? How do we present a case? What could be the case? This is where we're going. Are our numbers supporting what it is that we want to be? Getting the right people on board. I employed an American baseball coach to come in to the Australian cricket team environment. One, because he would bring a set of skills, a set of fielding skills that I thought were needed at the time. But more importantly, he was a great coach. but he was a completely different coach to me. We're aligned philosophically, value set, but he came at coaching from a completely different perspective, and so that was great. It brought a different feel, a different look, a different set of questions, a different view into the environment. Success measures, talked about those. Politics in every organisation. Do you play the politics well? I didn't, but I relied on some other people to do that for me who could play it better than me. But it's always there. So how do I leverage from that? How do I use that to my advantage? And then the whole review process. So, questions to you again, and we'll just spend a couple of quick minutes on this. Given your philosophy, am I living that through my game plan? What is my game plan? What is my coaching plan? Right? Do I live that on a daily? Do I know what that is? Just a couple of minutes, see if you can map out. Do you have a 10-step process? Do you have 2 or 3 things that you believe are musts in your role to enable you to deliver your role? What are they? What do you do? How do you shape yourself for success?